Hello everyone. Today our third lecture, Principle of Virology, which is the nature of viruses, which is very simple and easy lecture. Um, for the viruses consist of a nucleic acid and genome in a protein code. As we know that the viruses are the very smallest and simplest forms of life on Earth that we cannot see with the naked eye. We can see only in the electron microscope, and they consist of a set of nucleic acid genes enclosed in a protein called as a capsid, which is in some cases is surrounded by encloses the lipid membrane called an envelope. And the viral genome encodes a protein that enables it to replicate and to transmit it from one cell to another and from one organism to another. And the complete infectious particle is called viron. This is the actual diagram from where you can see this is the nucleic acid genome. Okay, and this is a protein core and the last is the lipid envelope, and these are the envelope proteins. There are two common capsid morphology. This is the roughly spherical shell and tubular rod, and some viruses have the envelope which is in the rough spherical is on the left side, and the tubular rod is on the right side. This is the some viruses particle have an envelope and they do not have. Okay, and nucleic acid genome, this is a nucleic acid that I already told you, and capsid proteins in the green spheres, and envelope proteins at the orange knob spikes. Okay, viruses are dependent on living cells for their replication. As you know that viruses cannot replicate without the host. Okay, there it is confirmed that the viruses can replicate only within the viruses. As the another way of saying that the viruses are the obligatory intracellular parasite. Obligatory intracellular parasite means that they are capable of growing and reproducing inside the host. That type of viruses that are growing within the host. Okay, viruses depend on cells for the replication. Because why the viruses depend, why the viruses replicate only within the host, this is the reason. First of all, that they lack the following basis elements required for the growth and replication, and second one is that which are present in all living cells, that enzyme system that produce the basic chemicals building blocks of nucleoside, which is the four. Number one is nucleotides, number two is amino acids, number three is the carbohydrates, and number four is lipids. Okay, the virus particles break down and release their genome inside the cell. There's a life cycle of viruses, that how virus particles break down and release their genome. Viruses are not the obligatory intracellular parasites, which means that the viruses are not only that they're growing and reproduce inside the cells, but there is also some unicellular microorganisms, which is chlamydia and rickettsia, that they have also that also are obligatory intracellular parasite, that they can only multiply inside other host cell like viruses. Okay, viruses replicate by a pathway that is very different from the mode of replication of these viruses intracellular parasites. First of all, viruses is partial disintegration of the virus particle, then it release. How it release? When it uncoat, then it release of the viruses and release its genome within the cell. Once the virus is uncoated, which means that is it released, the viral genome can be used as a template for the synthesis of the RNA, which in turn the synthesize the viral proteins using the enzyme system, energy, ribosomes, and molecular building blocks that are present within the cells. These viral proteins and direct replication of the viral genome, and the viral structural proteins encapsulate the newly replicated genomes to form the progeny virus particles. That is the life cycle one by one steps that are very easy. Uh, to replicate, a virus must transport the genome into a host cell where the genome direct synthesizes of the viral proteins is replicated and packed. The whole cell provides the virus with all of the other biological molecules required for the reproduction. Now what happens? The viral genome either the RNA or DNA, but not the both. You can see here the diagram. Where is genome? Genome is the, yeah, that one. In the black color you can see this is the nucleic acid genome. It could be the RNA or DNA, but the never both. DNA or RNA never both. There are many different viruses in the world, and probably all organisms on Earth can be infected by at least one viruses. All the organisms on Earth can be infected only at least one viruses. Viruses have a variety of different morphologies, means have different structures, genome and the particle size, and the mechanism of replication. And the different mechanism of replication of the viruses. The smallest viruses is the 20 nanometer. Okay, the smallest virus is 20 nanometer, while the largest virus is the 500 nanometer in diameter. While the smallest viruses genome contain the 2000 nucleotides. Okay, on the largest viruses which have the 1.2 million nucleotides, that is a huge number, and the smallest viruses encodes only the two proteins, but the large viruses encode the 1200 proteins. All viruses contain genome made of one and only one type of nucleic acid, means it could be RNA and DNA. I already told you that never both. Depending on the viruses, the genome can be either RNA or DNA. It can be either single-stranded or a double-stranded also. Okay. The viral genome is in the circular, means the shape is the circular, and linear. Linear means a straight form that you can say the linear is means straight, and circular means it could be the circle form, the circular type. Viruses are the only known forms of life that can have the genomes made up of RNA, and all the cellular organisms store the information required to sustain life, to grow, to reproduce in the DNA molecule, and all RNA molecules in these organisms are transcribed from the DNA sequences. Uh, the RNA containing viruses are therefore unique and they face related problems as a result of two of their RNA genomes. There is two reasons that you can see. They must synthesize. They must synthesize messenger RNA from an RNA template. First thing, and the second thing is that they must replicate their genome. Okay. First, they synthesize messenger RNA, and second, they must replicate their genome. And most viruses encode their own RNA dependent. Most viruses encode their own RNA dependent, and the RNA polymerase to carry out both these functions. They carry out also the both these two functions. This is for all. And if you like the video, never forget to subscribe and press the bell icon, and if you and please share with your friends as well. Thank you so much.